Have you ever stopped to think about what you might have lived through before this life? What if I told you that I remember my past lives? Yes, lives plural. But the most curious thing is that, in one of those lives, I wasn't human. I was a dog. Maybe that sounds strange, but the memories are alive in my mind. Every smell, every moment, every emotion. I still remember the wind on my muzzle, the sound of footsteps around me, and even the loneliness that often followed me. Today, I want to share with you this story, what my past life was like when I was a dog named Max. Believe me, it wasn't an ordinary life. It was filled with challenges, adventures, and moments that left a mark on my soul. And through these stories, I want to take you to a world where you can see life through the eyes of an animal. A world full of lessons that many humans can't even imagine. So get ready to hear about my emotional journey as Max, the stray dog who survived challenges no human could ever understand. This is my story, and it all begins on the day I was abandoned. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a sunny morning, the kind of day that makes you want to run and explore without a care. My human, the person I loved most in the world, opened the car door and called me with that tone of voice that always made me jump with joy. "Come on, boy," he said as I leapt out of the car, full of excitement. I thought we were going for a walk, exploring this new place. But he just stood there for a moment, looking at me. Then he got back in the car, closed the door, and started the engine. I stood there, wagging my tail, waiting for him to come back. After all, he always came back. It had to be a game, right? Maybe he was testing my patience, like he sometimes did. But as the car disappeared on the horizon, something inside me began to change. My tail stopped wagging. The smile in my heart vanished. And for the first time, I felt something I had never felt before: emptiness. I waited. I waited until the sun started to hide behind the trees, painting the sky orange and purple. I waited until the crickets began to sing and the air grew colder. But he didn't come back. In that moment, I realized I was alone. It was there, on that deserted road, that my journey began. There was no collar to hold my world together anymore, no gentle hands to stroke my fur. It was just me, the road, and the unknown ahead. That morning, my stomach growled louder than the cars passing by. I was hungry, a feeling I had never truly known before. There was no full bowl waiting for me, no delicious smell coming from the kitchen. Just the road, the wind, and my own instincts. That's when I learned my first lesson as a stray dog. You take what you find and be grateful that you're not empty-handed or empty-pawed. That dry piece of bread was the best feast of my life in that moment. But it wasn't just food I needed. I had to learn to protect myself, to be quick, and above all, to figure out who was a friend and who wasn't. Not all humans were kind like my former owner. Some yelled at me, others tried to throw things at me. I learned to keep my distance, to avoid crowded places, and to always stay alert. Being invisible was my best defense. But sometimes, the universe seemed to smile at me. I remember a little girl who tossed a piece of cake on the ground. It was sweet, soft, and for a moment, it made me forget about hunger and fear. Moments like that were rare but precious, like rays of sunlight on a cloudy day. Sometimes, I found myself watching other dogs with their families. They played, ran, and received affection. It was like watching a dream I had woken up from, but still lived on in some corner of my memory. The encounter with the pack. I was starting to get used to walking alone, but that night, as I turned a corner, I realized I wasn't the only one. 3 dogs stared at me, all bigger than I was, their eyes carefully evaluating my every move. Instinct is a powerful thing. It told me to run, but something made me stay. Maybe it was the look in the leader's eyes, a large, scarred mutt who seemed more curious than threatening. And that's how, for the first time, I felt like I was part of something. There were no leashes, no bowls of food, but there was one clear rule: together we had a better chance of surviving. With them, I learned things no human had ever taught me. I learned how to find the best places for food, how to listen to the sounds of the night to avoid danger, and even how to defend myself when other strays appeared to fight for territory. But it wasn't just about survival. For the first time, I felt alive again. We ran through the streets as if the world were ours. We shared the little we had, and somehow, that made me forget the longing I felt for my old home. That night, as we slept under the bridge, I realized something important. Freedom was good, but having company was better. Life on the streets was hard, but together, it felt less cruel. The stormy night. The streets always had their challenges, but nothing prepared me for that night. The sky seemed angry, pouring rain as if trying to wash the whole world clean. My pack had scattered, each of them running for shelter, and I was alone again. I hid under a tree, trying to escape the rain, but it wouldn't leave me alone. Every clap of thunder made me jump, and the cold cut through my fur like a blade. Then I heard footsteps. At first, I thought it was another human trying to scare me away, but something was different. The footsteps were calm, and with them came the sound of an umbrella fighting against the wind. She was different from any human I had met on the streets. She didn't yell, didn't try to chase me away. She just knelt in the rain, extending her hand as if to say, "It's okay, I'm here." My mind told me not to trust her, to run like I always had, but my heart told me to stay. When I touched my nose to her hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, warmth. And in that moment, I knew my life was about to change. She didn't just take me away from the storm. She took me away from the loneliness. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I belonged somewhere, or maybe to someone. That storm marked the end of my life on the streets. In the days that followed, I discovered what it meant to live with safety again. A warm place to sleep, food I didn't have to fight for, and above all, someone who genuinely cared about me. With her, I learned that not all humans are the same. Some have hearts big enough to see a dirty, wet dog on the street and recognize a friend waiting to be found. Life as a stray dog wasn't easy, but it taught me lessons I carry with me to this day. I learned that sometimes freedom can be lonely, but love is what truly makes life worthwhile. Now, every time I see a dog on the street, I think, is he waiting for his second chance too? Has he lived what I've lived? Because I know how much it hurts to lose everything, but I also know how much it's worth to find someone who gives you everything back. And that was my story as Max, the stray dog who found a new home and a new purpose. But this is just one of the many lives I've lived. Now I want to know about you. If you could imagine your past life, what animal do you think you were? A free bird? A curious cat? Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your answers. And don't miss the next story, where I'll tell you about another incredible life I lived as a completely different animal. Can you guess what it'll be? Stay tuned and see you in the next adventure.